down and dealing with the true emotions of the matter. But yeah, you make it one day at a time. And Kim talks about how great of a marriage they had and how great of friends they were. Those are the things that as you move forward and you start to look back on and cherish those things, even though he's no longer with us, you can always look back on those things with gratitude and be grateful for the powerful relationship that you had with him, because a lot of people wish they had that in this world. So yeah, he was. That's kind of it's always different for different people, I think, in terms of how they go through it, especially in the beginning. Was that your experience, Kim?
Yes. And,
Yeah.
some people are married one time, some people are married several times. It took me, being in a different kind of relationship where I had my daughter with, to come into Joe, he brought something like my daughter calls him dad. And he didn't have to step up and do that. He chose to do that. And he accepted my daughter. My daughter accepted him from the get-go. I mean, it was like there was no breaks, there was no anything. Now, I pumped brakes at the beginning because I wanted to make sure we were going to be together before I ever let him meet my daughter. I was that kind of parent. I had been a single mom for almost 10 years, but then I was like, nobody gets to my child before I know this is a secure thing. I didn't date. I'd been battling health issues for a long time. Like I said, I had been in and out of the hospital with cancer. And so I sure wasn't going to bring somebody in that was going to just leave. And so I was very guarded. And when Joe knew that, that was one of the things he said. I respected that because in the wrestling business, you all know, there's a lot that can go on. And there's a lot of girls that are in and out of the scene that are just kind of a fly by night or, whatever. And he said, you can have short relationship or you can have something of substance. And he said, I wasn't looking for anything. You weren't looking for anything. And that's what we built on, was more or less, we became best friends from the get-go. I knew him through Mike, but we became really good friends over the first 2 years. And that's what the whole thing was. And I mean, it became like where I couldn't go a day without talking to him and vice versa. But you knew like I don't know, like just like now, like what Avi was saying, you were right, Mike. It's autopilot, like that whole first, you really don't even know what's going on until you have time to really digest it and look back. And some things, like when you kind of come down off of it and you know that you have to face it. And I've had like a little battle with some underlying anger with some of it. And I've been dealing with that. I've actually been seeing a therapist on some of this. And
in terms of just having to come to terms with what happened?
Some of that, and some of it is some other issues that like we were prepared. I mean, to be honest, we were not prepared. And I know a lot of people who wants to sit down and talk about, okay, we need to sit down and have the talk and let's make sure that everything's in place for if something happens to us.
Point. Very good point. Yeah.
We had actually had conversations about it. And then we would always kind of in the conversation, like, we'll do this tomorrow. We'll do this at the end of the week. We're going to draw paperwork and do all this stuff. That day never happened. And,
so that's resting firmly on your shoulders right now too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, some people assume, things will be taken care of because you have this or because you have that. No, that's not the way things go. And there were some health conditions with Joe, and no, he was in great shape when that happened. No one expected it. And I will tell you, some of the treatments and things he was having saved his life. And, a lot of people, there's been speculations out there and I don't even address them, but he was, like I said, his doctors and everything were just as shocked as anyone else that happened. But they told me that could have happened to me. It could have happened to anybody walking just as much as it could happen to him. And that's why they said you need to just always be prepared and just be grateful that you wake up tomorrow, and be thankful you live. They say you live each day as if it's your last. My mom and my grandmother always used to tell me that. and you hear it, but you really don't do it.
Process
You
it.
take a lot of things for granted. And if you
Right.
really do it, then you would be more prepared. You would do things that you want to do and get things done, not procrastinate. I'm guilty of that a lot. And I'm trying to change that. But now in the past 3 months, I'm lucky to leave my house.
Well, I understand that because, like, if you walk outside and it's 85 degrees and it's bright, it's sunny, there isn't a cloud in sight, I'm not going to walk out with an umbrella. I don't.
Right. Right.
Who can prepare for a rainy day when you don't expect that it's coming? Casey Danzig, I lost my boyfriend to cancer in 2008. There are no right words to remove the grief or golden handbook to fix the loss. The road is rocky, but the road exists one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. You're a strong lady, Kim. Keep being amazing. Great comment there from
Awesome,
Casey.
Kim.
Amazing comment there. And yeah, I want to make sure that you guys and gals understand something too. Your story is incredible, and we're going to keep talking about Joe also. But to me, you know, there's such a huge chapter in your book of life now, and that sounds so sappy and it sounds so cheesy, but it's true. The book that you're writing right now is getting really interesting because that's the part of the book that people will be allowed to go back and read some of the words that you're writing right now to help them move forward. Your road to recovery is inspiring because you're actually still on your road. You still are recovering, but while you're doing that, in unison, you're also helping people. That's not something that, let's not sneeze at that. We shouldn't take that lightly at all. There aren't too many people that are grieving, but also have the power to help people the way that you are day to day. And I want to applaud you for that, Kim. I really do.
Well, thank you for even saying that because I don't feel like that. I feel like that there's just as many people as myself out there. Like I told you, these Facebook groups that I've joined, you know, that have lost loved ones. I've been watching them with people passing away on Christmas Day, on Christmas Eve. And, you know, you're going, oh my God, how does this happen? You know, like this can always be so much worse. But there's other ladies that I have turned to and like reading their stories and hearing them. And they've reached out to me, kind of narrowing down more on the wrestling group, you know, Barbara Goodish, Ivan Koloff's wife, Renee. I mean, they are amazing women. Vicky Guerrero, you know, I mean, there are just so many people that have already gone through and still never get off of this path. You do it. You just learn how to deal with it. I'm just at the very beginning and I'm just trying to figure out my way. And like you said, everybody's story is different and they may have been more prepared than me. Maybe they weren't, you know, and everybody may not have had a blended family. Maybe they just had their one family. You know, there's just all these little intricate details that play a part in how you move forward and what you do and where you should go and you shouldn't go. And I will tell you, Joe was my decision maker. I have always been a person who could not make my own decision. Like I throw things out there, but then I would be like, oh, should I do this or should I do this? It used to drive him crazy, but then we figured it out. Like, okay, here's my options. He would pick. and that was a done deal. Now that he's not here, I am a loose cannon over here like, oh my God, okay, you're going to have to put on your big girl panties and figure this crap out one way or another, or else nothing's going to get done. And so I make lists. I have about 10 lists every day of the same thing, but I've got to mark something off the list. And so whether it's 10 lists stuck everywhere, it's going to be in my face and something's got to get marked off the list. And I'm like, Joe is probably screaming at me to mark that off that list. You better it's not going to get off that list.
So I want to ask you a question over here too, and I want to throw it to Mike in a second. So let me ask you a question. This is something I was thinking about, and I like to ask people this, whether or not they're going through a loss or not. Well, who kind of had control over the remote control? Was it you or Joe?
Oh, absolutely, Joe.
The hard-hitting questions.
Right. Yeah, sure.
But I would
We'll
steal at times, and then he would know like immediately when I had it. It would be
Right.
this look that he would give, like, "You have it, don't you?" You know, and he'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I hadn't even changed the channel yet, but he would know. He would know instantly.
This is a great comment from Pat Conway. I'm so very proud of this strong girl, my precious daughter. My beloved son-in-law, Animal, was the best husband to Kim and dad to my granddaughter, Lindsay, to ever ask for. She can do this. Joe's spirit will always be with her from Pat. Mom?
Oh, yes. That's
Yeah.
my mom.
There
She's
you go.
Joe. Oh, Joe is that she took great pride.
That is an awesome question there. Statement there. We have a lot of questions as well, guys. You could throw a couple to Kim's way. Now, Duke, I want to ask you a question regarding what we're speaking of. Sometimes helping others is a way. It's kind of an elixir. It's a way to heal as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's probably one of the biggest ways. Once you start to really get your footing in going through your situation, if any opportunity you get to really get out there and talk to other people and even help other people going through what they are going through, that comes back on you tenfold and even more. And you've probably already experienced that some, Kim, talking to folks and getting the opportunity to kind of help other folks that are newer to it, to the process, and getting a chance to help them in their beginnings. It is very rewarding and very helpful to you in your recovery as well. So yeah, it's the same in any kind of recovery. Eventually, we can't do it right away in the beginning. We've really got to find our way first. But once you find your footing, it's so important to reach out and find others that are struggling and suffering through the same things and lend them our lived experience to learn from. That is extremely important part of it.
Well, see that I can kind of touch on that now because I felt that, unfortunately, this past few days, because Joe's grandson, our grandson Jacob, who we adore, who lives here in St. Louis. It's our only family here in St. Louis. He unfortunately just lost his other grandfather 2 days ago, and so he's now lost both of his grandfathers in this year. And Jordan Pastor, his dad, is just an amazing guy. And it was the same thing, just like Joe. No one had any idea. His name is Bob Pastor. They live up in Minnesota. And I had just talked to Jordan the day before, had a great conversation. And the next day I hear this and I'm like, it's like somebody sucker punches you to the gut. And you're like, where did this come from? He was in great shape, great health. And it sounded just like Joe.
I was going to say, because it sounds reminiscent in terms of the circumstances being instantaneous, did that kind of take you back or trigger something within?
It definitely triggered. And I in the beginning of the day, it was like I almost froze up because I was very emotional, more emotional than what I should have been, almost in a sense, because it was almost like I was replaying everything that I had felt before, like how that happened. And then I really, really was wanting to reach out to his wife. And then I was like, but then I knew how I felt. Like I just wanted everybody to leave me alone that day. But she didn't have TMZ calling her at 5 a.m. and she didn't have all that stuff happening, thank God, where it was making me so angry that morning. And I was trying to replay all that stuff. And I was like, but then you wanted people, to be there for you on one hand, but then the other hand, you just kind of wanted to recluse yourself, and just kind of digest everything because it was so new and it was such a shock. And so I was trying to kind of balance that out. And I decided I want to send them a message. I at least have to reach out and send them a text message. I know they're bombarded with trying to figure everything out. So at least I'm going to send them something. And that's what I did. And I'm glad that I did because I started communicating, with them right then. And like you said, there are no words. There's no words that you can say.
Yeah, but you seem like someone who lines up all your ducks in a row, though. I commend you for that, really. That's amazing. I applaud you for being able to do that.
And sometimes it's not about saying a lot and having all of the right things to say necessarily for somebody else and helping them through their process. Sometimes in the beginning, it's just about letting them know that you're there and that you love them and that you will be there for them when they need to talk.
When they're ready, right?
When they're ready, you just got to let them know that and then step back and let the process start to take place. But just always let them know you're there and that you love them. Sometimes that's all it takes. That's the beginning. So, yeah.
And that's pretty much what I did. But it's like on the other hand, in your head, you get in your head a lot because you're playing everything and you're just like, okay, I should do this or I should do this or what should I do?
Overthinking and obsessing.
And you're really overanalyzing and thinking everything, and that's what I'm still working on. It's like knowing the boundaries or what you should do. And it's like you said, you just have to